The newest mini-box Wing of Genesis, released on September 2nd, 2025. It's not very good. I think it's fair to say it's kind of a bust. This isn't the first bad mini-box we've gotten in the history of Duel Links, but also I feel like it's the first really bad one that we've gotten since, I want to say, Explosion of Media, which was all the way back in December 2023. I spent 7,000 gems trying to get 3 copies of Red Eye's Media Black Dragon. If you go look for what the most popular account from this box is, you can see that it's Infernal Rage right here, which means the hero support is the most popular stuff to come out of this mini box, which is exactly 2 cards. You got your Infernal Rage, and you got React Up Your Elemental Hero. Thank you, Konami, for another 2 months of Super Poly discourse. But I'm not here to complain about Hero today, but instead I want to talk about the 3 decks that were supposed to be the focus of this mini box, which is to say Generaiders, Mutants, and Armed Dragons. All 3 of these decks got support or released in this mini box, along with a dedicated skill, and all 3 of these decks suck, basically. There's no other way of putting it. And these decks weren't like good in the TCG or the OCG for the most part. I think Generator might have actually been a decent meta contender a couple of formats ago, but I digress. And Duel Links could have been the game where they really became popular and good, like was the case with so many other underwhelming decks throughout the history of the game. And how do you make a bad deck good in Duel Links in 2025? You give it a strong skill. You give it a really good skill. Anyway, today's Scopium session will be about how Konami should, could, and definitely won't buff these decks. So part 1. Why should Konami buff bad decks? It's okay for bad decks to exist, you know? Not every deck has to be game-breaking or anything. If you're thinking about this from the perspective of Konami, from the perspective of a business, when you release a new product and the product is good, it makes people want to buy it, which means you make money off of those idiots. and from the perspective of players, you know, maybe you want the format to change a little bit anytime there's new products. You know, it's been 2 years of Despia, sorry, a month of Despia being the top deck in the game, and 17 years of Shadows being the actual real top deck in the game. So I'm guessing people may want to see a little bit of changes, you know? And the most they got to see was that now Hero can floodgate them and OTK them even more. Okay, now let's talk about each of these decks individually, starting with Generaiders. I think if I'm just going to take a look at each of these decks' skills, and then we can talk about how the skills are bad and what we can do to make them good. That's best up. If you look for Dyson Sphere Gravity, very specifically you get 2 skills. And the first one is just Gravity Blast the Turbo. What the heck? Okay, so Generators don't really have an archetypal skill per se. They just defaulted to Dyson Sphere Gravity, which is like level 9 support. Generators a level 9 deck. I guess that works. I'm not going to read you the skill. You can read the skill on your own time. If you want to read the skill, just pause the video and you can read the skill and can be like, wow, this is garbage. Okay, so what exactly is good and bad about this skill? The first effect is genuinely good. You know, getting an additional normal, always a really good effect, and being able to normal a level 9 monster without tributing, also super good. A lot of Generator lists are just trying to turbo out the plant one that are normal, such as the rest of your archetype, which means you either get the field spell or you get the level 9 that specials itself, so you can go into your Xyz. That's decent stuff, you know, that's okay, that's pretty cool stuff, pretty good stuff. That's a good start for a skill. And then there's the second effect, which is the bad part of the skill, where you can only activate it if your opponent controls a monster, if only your opponent controls a monster, which is a weird line of text considering I don't think all the skills like the Shadow one have this specific condition. I'm going to check actually. Okay, it does. I'm an idiot. But to be fair, Shadow also don't have to put any cards back in the deck in order to get a card, you know? And for the cost of putting 2 cards back from your hand into the deck, you get to play a Dyson Sphere. Face down, it does material, and then you get to add an Xyz spell card, which is either going to be Xyz import for monster removal, or Xyz Burst for everything that's face down removal. So what this means is twofold. Basically, you're gonna have to put a bunch of cards and resources back into your deck, which, if you're playing Generaiders and you want to summon things from your deck with your field spell, that's not that bad, but 2 of them? That's a bit much, I feel. And second, you basically don't have an activated effect if you go first. The skill needs you to go second in order to get the good parts, which is a thing that skills do, but I feel like, you know, Generators out of all decks could maybe benefit from a little help. And the archetype is like close to being good, right? It's the one of these 3 archetypes that has met the most competitive success. It has some tournament tops. I saw 1 for sure. I'm thinking maybe 2. Maybe 2 is where the deck is at. So what if we made it just a little bit better? Just a little bit better. Here's how we can make it better. First of all, you make the effect not once per duel, right? The second effect, you can make it twice per duel. I don't know why all 3 of these skills have like once per duel effects when Draconic Contact is still in the game. You make the second effect not once per duel, but once per turn. And instead of being, if your opponent controls a monster and only your opponent controls a monster, you put Dyson Sphere, then you search an Exile spell. Make it so if you control a rank 9 monster, or only your opponent controls a card. I want it to work if your opponent doesn't control a monster, right? Because there's a couple of like decks set up that go through ending on Nightmare Unicorn, shuffling itself, beat Cup of the Underworld, treating itself to leave an empty field so that your opponent can't use their skill. But I feel like in the case of like weaker decks, we should probably make it so the skills cover that as well. Anyway, if your opponent controls a card, or if you control a rank 9 monster, you can add 1 Xyz spell card from your deck to your hand. Then, once per duel, you can put a card from your hand back in your deck. 1 card, just 1 card, to put a Dyson Sphere face down and can be flipped that turn as the 2 Xyz material. I think that would be a fair buff to the skill and the deck. Maybe make it a little bit better. It basically means that the projected turn 1 end board for Generators is like the Big Angry Lady. I don't know any of the other names. The Big Angry Lady, the field spell that summons your Generator, maybe Nidhogg or Ha. I guess I know some of their names. And Xyz import so that you can use it as disruption. Or what, is there another good Xyz card that you could use out there? I think it's still worth considering. It will open more avenues for this deck and make it more not bad. Mutants isn't a good archetype, right? It's a deck that plays a much slower version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than the one that existed when the deck came out in 2020, and that the one currently exists in 2025 Duel Links. But I feel like there's also some leeway in order to make the skill not nearly as bad, which in turn would make the deck a wee bit better. First and foremost, you don't need to make the second effect of the skill once per duel. Once per duel for a bad switcheroo? Really? You can have it be twice per duel. You can have it be thrice per duel, right? Thrice per duel seems completely fine. Even considering the fact that your field spell basically does the same thing. Thrice per duel for this? Or at least let me choose which card I'm getting, Konami. Putting a card back and then drawing a card. Do I need to remind you of how the new Utopia skill works? Do I need to remind you that it's just you put any card into your deck and then you get 2 cards of your choosing? And this is, you have to put a specific card and then you get 1 card. That doesn't seem too fair. Also, yeah, like I said, for Generators, you remove the if only your opponent controls a monster. Make it like if your opponent controls a card. So if you're an idiot like me and you forget about this part of the skill effect and you normal summon MO5 and then you're like, oh god damn it, I could have gotten a search. You're not completely punished. Yes, this encourages people playing worse, but also, leave me alone! I'm playing Mutants! And last but not least, but I feel like maybe the skill needs an additional effect, because like, if you summon Mutant and you use its effect, you're going to be down 24 to 3,000 life points. 2400 rather, not just 24 life points. 24 life points is manageable. 2400 life points, much less so. And in a format that is still defined by Despia being probably the most popular deck everywhere, things get hard. Things get pretty difficult. So I propose that we add an additional effect that says, if you have activated the effect of either mutant or just a mutant level 4 or lower effect monster this turn, you can gain attack. You're not gonna punch your opponent in the face. You can gain life points equal to the attack of a face-up mutant monster that you control during the end phase of this turn. In the most permissive version of this skill, maybe you start the duel with 7,000 life points, which I feel like is a fair trade away for playing mutants. I feel like more skills should give you more life points to compensate the fact that you're playing a PP poo poo deck. That's just me though. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's how I feel about this. Can you tell that I'm biased? You probably can't, I've just been so good at this. Alright, now for the bell of the ball. The new skill, Dragonic Contact, just kidding. It's still insane that this skill exists and they made Armed Dragon Vortex. So for context, Armed Dragons already had a skill, Arm Crossover, which came out in the midst of 2023, I want to say, with Zillion Thunder and the wave of Armed Dragon Thunder support. And this skill wasn't the greatest for several reasons. Reason number one is that it puts a bunch of the old Armed Dragon guys in your deck, which are terrible to draw. It put a couple of them in the graveyard, but if you top deck one of them, you're like, ah, god damn it. And we didn't have an easy way to cheat out Armed Dragon level 10 yet, so that wasn't exactly good. But also, it gave you White Veil. Wow, just so you can summon Armed Dragon White. Yeah. But also, something that I think was pretty cool that it allowed you to do is that it allowed you to summon pretty much whatever you wanted and allowed you to play normal monsters. I guess the lore idea behind this is synergy with the Ojamas, right? But in reality land, people played it with like a couple of rank 5 enablers in order to fuel the graveyard with Dark Monster for Dark Armed Dragon. Did I mention that you could turn stuff into Dark just so you can summon Dark Armed Dragon? I thought it was pretty cool. You can also play some rank 5 stuff. I remember some people playing, I want to say Jack's Knight, and then Feast of the Battle God or whatever it's called, in order to summon it from the grave when you have a level 5 and you make a rank 5 monster. And that was pretty cool. It's a deck that I liked. That I liked a lot. I caught with it in the middle of Speed Raid format. I don't think it was like on the tier list. I think it was considered rogue at best. I'm gonna look at if it had actual tournament results actually, because I'm curious. I don't think it did. Oh wow, I actually did get some turny tops. That's kind of cool. So how does Konami follow that up with the release of Pile Armed Dragon and Tempest Dragon Ruler of Storm, which is also a win level 7 dragon monster? This is what we get. So, this skill feels a bit like a downgrade compared to Arm Crossover, because at least Arm Crossover allowed you to play Dark Armed Dragon and normal monsters. Sure, you can summon Dark Arm with this version of the skill, but also you can't play darks or turn stuff into darks, so you can't summon Dad, except with the effect of your skill, but then you can't use the effect of Dad. Am I an idiot for wanting Dad to be playable in Duel Links in 2025? Probably. But also this skill doesn't allow you to play pretty much anything, right? I tried playing Dracosack the other day. You can't summon the Dracosack tokens. Why? Because they're not wind dragon monsters. Make it so this skill can just summon any wind monster. Right? What's the worst that can happen? If you're that concerned, you can make it so you can only summon wind dragon monster or armed dragon monster from your hand or deck the same way, or graveyard, the same way that you do with the, whatchamacallit, the Gaia skill that was so loose in terms of restriction that people turned it into discount Dragon Link. Right? You just use the same wording here You do the same thing, and it's gonna be fine, because at the end of the day, they're still playing Armed Dragon. Also, why is this skill once per duel? Why is this? Why did it need to be once per duel? This was never going to... You're still playing Armed Dragon. The deck wasn't good in 2023. It's not gonna be game-breaking now. Oh, you can make rank 7s now. Wow, that's fantastic. Is there any good rank 7 in the game in 2025? You know, we're well past the point of Verlo being a meta-defining threat. What are they gonna do? Big Eye? I think this could safely be a twice per duel type of skill. You know, I don't think that'd be anyway broken. And also, unlike the previous two, the skill doesn't even give you anything if you go second, which maybe it should. Like, what realistically, what could it get as a thing that can help it go second? Because that's the thing. I look at the Armed Dragon Thunder archetype. It's bad. It's bad. There are no good cards. Like, there's one trap and it's bad. Maybe you can get a 3 lightning. Maybe you get to add an additional Wind Dragon from your deck to your hand. If your opponent controls a card, add an additional Wind Dragon monster on top of the 2 Armed Dragons that you're getting. At least you're getting 2 cards. You have to put any of them back into the deck, which I feel is pretty cool. So maybe you're getting 3 cards. Maybe that'd be a bit much. But also, you're playing Armed Dragons. I'm gonna take all the help I can get. I don't know, I feel like this is easily the worst of the 3 decks, and it's gonna take extra effort to try and salvage it. But also, I want to live in a world where Armed Dragon is like a viable meta contender, right? It doesn't have to be the best deck of the format, but if people show up in tourneys with Armed Dragon Vortex and get some good tops and stuff, I'm gonna be happy. In general, I'd like for Konami to try and buff more of the bad decks around there. I don't mean like the kind of pussy buff that they did last ban list, that they were like, oh, this deck can play Nibiru now. Remember Nibiru? Selection box exclusive. But like real buffs where you actually improve the consistency of decks that weren't natively consistent in the TCG, instead of focusing on decks that were already good in the TCG and making them even more consistent. Or you raise their power level, or you allow them to do funky stuff. I don't know, just give me a place to enjoy my Armed Dragon Thunders, Konami. And that's the sad thing about Duel Links, that at the end of the day, I'm still more likely to get some wins with ADT in Duel Links than I am in Master Duel or the TCG. Also, I just realized this, but Dice and Sphere Gravity is the 10th most popular skill in Duel Links at the moment, which is kind of cool. You know, it means this mini box wasn't a complete waste of time, and it's still like a competitively viable deck, but just not the greatest out there, and it could probably give it a little help. Anyways, that's it for today's Streams of Consciousness passing for a YouTube video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to let me know in the comment section of this video which of these 3 archetypes is your favorite. Mine's Mutant, you already knew that, but I also like these other 2 decks, which is what I'm batting for them. I love underdog decks in general. Make sure to also like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. If you'd like to support me further, you can check out my Ko-fi in the video description, where you can make a one-time donation or a monthly pledge, or you can become a YouTube channel member. I would all like to thank my Ko-fi donators in the forms of Dingus, Boy Zero, Jimmy, Zinnia, Yannick, Sile, Mark Lu, Fortuno16, the Abyss Actor Guru, All Price, and Exorcist. And I would like to thank my YouTube channel members, Sternay, Crimson Reaper 5, Troy Bolton, Genius Wannabe, and Seal Lelouch. Thank you all for the support. Is it too late to make a ban list wishlist type of video? I don't even know what I'd say. I think the format's not that bad. Maybe you just take some floodgates out behind the sheds, ban Winda forever, and then you make a first Dark Lord like limited one alongside Masquerade, so people can't play that in Despia anymore. Right? Would that be a good list? I feel like that'd be a good list. Anyway, thank you all once again. Take care, everyone. I will see you all next time.